Welcome to the David Spisak Show. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I'm super excited about today because I have the opportunity to introduce you to Morgan Prestwood. Morgan is the CFO of RockEd. And what makes this incredibly important and interesting and exciting for me personally is because my entire life I've been on either one side or the other of development. I've been fortunate enough to have somebody take an interest in me or wanted to help me develop as a person, a human, in my career, as a manager, as a leader. And I've also spent my entire career developing others, coaching others, and mentoring others. So the reason I've done that is because I was fortunate enough to have that happen for me. And it's just one of the great ways that we could pay things forward, because we know the power of that and we know the impact that has. Now, Morgan, first and foremost, I want to welcome you and thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely, David. Thank you so much for having me on the show, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I am delighted to speak with you. Morgan, so this is an age-old problem. I mean, this is my 44th year. Think about this. Give you some context. 44 years in this business, and in each and every one of those 44 years, I've heard not one, not two, but nearly every dealership lament about the challenge of finding people, finding talent, hiring people, and keeping people, right? I need to find them, I need to hire them, and I need to keep them. And it occurred to me a long time ago that it's somewhat analogous, right, to sales. And I don't mean to I'm not trying to dumb it down. I'm not trying to discount the people side, because it's frankly far more powerful and important than the sales side. But there is a bit of relevance here, in my opinion. I want to know what you think about this. Each and every month, dealers spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and across the industry, millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars on marketing and advertising to bring people into our store that don't know us and we don't know them, right? So there's no power of a relationship here. And we bring them in to hopefully create an opportunity where we could start an ongoing relationship that starts with selling them a car. Once we sell them a car, what do? Instead of focusing and saying, listen, I'm going to absolutely become an expert at nurturing a relationship so I can take this prospect to a customer, to a client, to an advocate, to a champion. Instead of doing that, we just seem year after year to spend more money every month bringing new people we don't know and having people that we spent all that money on last month, last year, or whatever, leak out the back door. Is that fair?
Very fair, absolutely.
And wouldn't it make a lot more sense to take the time and really invest the time and develop a relationship so that person you invested the marketing in one time, that person may end up buying 2, 3, 4, 5 cars or more in their lifetime, right? And it seems like we have the tendency to do a little bit of the same thing when it comes to the employee side. We struggle. We want to find people. You bring somebody on, and whether they're good or great or one of a kind, at some point, we oftentimes stop paying attention to them. There is no development path. We just think that they're going to be happy working here, even though it's the 3rd, 5th, 7th, 8th year of doing the exact same thing. And even though, Morgan, not one of us could imagine not having a desire to develop ourselves and continue our career. And so I'm curious, what's your take? What's kind of missing there? And I want to connect the dots here to RockEd, because not only has the problem existed for 40-something plus years, nobody solved it for 40-something years. It seems to me, I kind of think you guys have cracked open the door to being able to solve it. And I'll get into that in a minute. But what would be your opening statement in terms of the state of attracting and keeping talent in retail auto?
Absolutely. And I think a great correlation here is actually where you and I first met at Autovate in the beginning of this past December. I don't know if you remember, but Glenn Mercer gave a presentation to us.
Right.
And one of the slides that he held up on the screen was the average annual car sales per salesperson over the past, I believe it was either 20 or 30 years. And
10.
that number was between 100 and 110 cars every single year. And it hasn't fluctuated in 30 years. And the reason for that is because we do not make the investment in our people to develop and watch them progress, and they end up leaving. Like you just said, I think that we are very invested in ourselves and making sure that we have the development and the career progression that we want to see. But as your experience, I think you've seen, and what I've seen from the automotive industry is that investment in people is very short as is. And I think that's what leads to people getting frustrated and leaving the industry. Although we know it's an excellent industry and can provide an excellent career path, the investment in people isn't there to satisfy that career development.
You may be familiar with Marcus Buckingham, are you?
I am not.
Marcus Buckingham, he had at least 3 books that were on the New York Times bestseller list. He was with Gallup for a long period of time, who was highly reputed, highly regarded for being perhaps the greatest survey or polling company on the planet. And Gallup undertook a rather monumental task. They spent 20 years trying to understand the dynamics, the relationship between the manager and the associate, the company and the associate, and so forth. What made people join a company? What made them stay at a company? What made them leave a company? And one of the greatest takeaways from his first book, which is called First Break All the Rules, was that an employee always goes to work for a company and then always leaves or quits their manager. They don't go to work for the manager. They go to work for the company, but they quit the manager. And if you think about it, I mean, who doesn't enter into a new employment arrangement with incredible levels of excitement, enthusiasm, and hope? Is that fair, Morgan?
Very fair. Absolutely.
So why would that same human who ran so hard, worked so hard to get from the point to where maybe they were one of 50 or 100 applicants or more, and they fought their way through to become one of the ones that got a phone interview, and they fought their way through to be a finalist and get interviewed, and man, they got that job. They won that job. Why did they leave, in your opinion?
I think what you said is people leave their manager. And I think to correlate that to automotive, a lot of times people are put in management positions without really any leadership training or leadership skills, right? Oh, you're one of our best salespeople. You're automatically qualified for the desk. You've seen it. I've seen it. Yep. We've all seen it. But does that really qualify you to lead people? Do you have the skills? Do you have the training that you need to actually lead a team and manage a team effectively? A lot of times you don't. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't want to be a sales manager or you're not committed to learn, but maybe you just don't have the mentors available or the training available or the investment in you to be able to acquire those leadership skills to really manage a team effectively. So it's kind of a little bit of a vicious circle when these people are thrown into management positions in the automotive industry just because they were a very effective and very productive salesperson, right? They're very good with customers, but they haven't really been shown a path or a way to really lead a team. And that is just, that's critical in being an effective manager, is being able to have empathy, being able to listen to your employees. It's not dealing with customers directly anymore. It's training a team on how to interact with customers, how to follow up with customers, right? So I think we see that a lot in this industry, is just because you're selling 20 to 30 cars a month, you're immediately thrown in this management position, assuming you're going to be a great sales manager, but that doesn't always correlate.
There's so many things I can unpack there, and I'm going to do my best to try to touch on a number of them, because you brought up some great points, and they really warrant an expanded conversation. So let me start with this. So the people that we put into management positions, it's quite possible that they themselves never were the recipient of any formal training. In fact, it would be fair to say, and a very solid bet, by the way, if you wagered all the money you have, that at least 80% of the managers were not given any formal, ongoing, consistent training program. So start there. So they don't know what they don't know. They don't even know what they're supposed to do, what it's supposed to look like. Then they get put into the management position, and because they also don't get training there, they're taking a sip of water from a fire hose. So they're just trying to keep up. They don't want to make a mistake. They want to make the dealer happy and proud that they put them there. And they just think maybe perhaps, hey, I kind of fought my way through the pack. So if I hire people, they need to do the same thing. In fact, maybe that is the right way. Third thing, huge difference, as you know, and I'm glad you called this out, between being a manager and being a great manager, but then becoming a great leader, right? So a manager is somebody that literally can manage tasks. We're going to open at this time. I've got to manage these systems. We've got to make sure that these processes happen. But that's a far cry from leadership. And today's business environment, especially in stores, demands both. What would you say to those specific items that I just picked out of what your opening statement was?
Absolutely. Well, first, we're going to touch on the consistency piece, right? And I mean, you and I discussed this a lot. And, the way that we consume information today does not resemble the way that information was consumed 10, 15, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago. It changes so rapidly. Everybody consumes information, their news, everything through social media now. I mean, TikTok's the biggest news provider or the biggest news source on the planet now. But yet training and learning and development is still primarily done in a 1 hour classroom session. And that is just not the way that people consume information anymore. That's not absorbable. It's not digestible. We really have become accustomed to learning in little snippets, in little short form, 60 to 90 second, just snippets of information. And our brains have become accustomed to that's how we absorb information. And that consistency piece that you mentioned is key in learning and development today, being able to absorb those snippets of information, but being consistent and doing that daily is how you really have to train and develop your teams, because that is the way that we consume information in this day and age. I get all of my news through, I guess it's now called X, but I get all of my news through Twitter. Look at the highest visited pages on Facebook and LinkedIn, or the highest like posts, right? Most of them, the majority of them, are going to have a video attached to it. We have just become, in this new age, that is how we consume all our information, and that is the easiest way for us to remain consistent and remain repeatable every single day. And again, as you touched on, these people are thrown into these management roles, and they're wearing all these different hats, and they're having to deal with customer heat, and they have to manage a team of salespeople, and they have to worry about vehicle acquisition, right? Whereas before they were just worried about selling cars, and that's all they had to worry about. Well, now they have 100 different things to worry about, and they have a GM, and they have a GSM, and they have a dealer principal all coming at them every single day, and they need that support. They need that training and development to learn how to really, the most important thing is prioritize, right? How do you prioritize your task, and how do you make your people a priority so you can delegate all of that down so you don't have to deal with 100 different fires every single day? You are delegating that, and you have those leadership skills to delegate those down and get everything done effectively. And a lot of the management positions in dealerships specifically, people aren't trained that way. They aren't trained those leadership skills to be able to do that effectively.
I appreciate your perspective, and I do agree with you. I'm sitting here thinking as you're sharing that with me about a couple things. I just was sharing with some people. In fact, I just did a podcast because I think about training and development a lot, and I've shared with people over the course of my career that for me it's always been about people over profit. And that doesn't mean I'm not a capitalist. It doesn't mean that I'm not hyper competitive. It doesn't mean I don't hate to lose. It doesn't mean I don't want to make all the money, because none of those are true. Of course I do. I've just never seen a path that's sustainable, that where you can accomplish those things unless it's built on an incredible foundation, great work culture, client culture, and where your people are, where you put the investment in them, and then you let them run. Somebody told me a long time ago, don't hire somebody to do a job and then lean over their shoulder every day telling them how to do their job, right? So the reason where I'm going is Jensen Huang, who's the founder of NVIDIA. I don't know if there's anybody whose name is trending more than Jensen Huang. It's hard to believe that somebody came along who made Elon Musk a little bit less relevant, right? I mean, this guy is like literally taking, trending, or hashtags away from Elon because of what he's accomplished with his company. And for good reason. The company's up, I think, 3x in value over the last year. It's just an absolute rocket ship with most analysts on the street saying that we haven't seen anything yet. These guys are going to continue to skyrocket. And it really caused me to have an interest. I've got this disease, a curiosity of a 5-year-old. And so I started looking up about Jensen Huang. Here's what I learned. He was born in Taiwan. They migrated here. Around the age of 10, he was put in Kentucky, Oneida, Kentucky. They sent him away to a school for difficult children. I didn't even know that existed in the United States. Difficult children. He was bullied relentlessly, victim of racial slurs and people harassing him. His first job ever was cleaning toilets in the dorm room of that school. He managed to make his way through there, through high school, went to his family then migrated to Portland, Oregon, where I'm sitting. And he ultimately went to Oregon State and then Stanford. But his first job ever, he was 15 years old, and he got a job as a busboy at Denny's. And over the course of the next 15 years, he took on many minimum wage jobs until he graduated from Stanford with a master's in electrical engineering. He then went to work for LSI Logic, and at one point, Morgan, he served up directly to the head of the company the very idea of NVIDIA. When he got finished sharing it with him, the head of NVIDIA actually said, I think that's the worst pitch I've ever heard in my life. Just summarily rejected him. He then went to AMD to be a designer of microchips. And it wasn't until 30 that he started NVIDIA. And by the way, that was 30 years ago. So he's another one of those 30-year overnight success stories. But here's the questions I came around with. How many people had an opportunity to hire what is clearly an incredibly special, talented, brilliant human, and they just didn't see it? How many people are still using the same approaches they always have, maybe looking for people that they feel comfortable working around, maybe looking for people based on their experience, not based on their potential or their talent or their work ethic? It seems to me that one of the real potential powers of RockEd is to change that. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. And I'm very familiar with Jensen Huang. I think you do a much better job of his path than Jim Cramer does on Squawk on the Street every single morning. I think he says his name about 100 times every day. But I agree with that.
He's a Jensen groupie.
He is a Jensen groupie, that's for sure. But I agree with that wholeheartedly. How many people miss the investment in Jensen Huang for him to realize his full potential? And it's something that you and I have discussed before. If we think about if dealers invested in their people the way that they invest in their inventory, all the time, all the energy, all the money, all the tools, from acquisition to recon to merchandising to syndication to actually selling the car, all this time, all this money every single day, just think if a fraction of that was reallocated to invest in their people. And how much would their people appreciate them if they realized that their store was making that investment in their success. And that's one thing that we talk about a lot at RockEd is just think about if we spent as much time focusing and investing in our people as we do on investing and focusing on our inventory.
I love that you said that in particular. You know why? Because human beings, if given the right care, oversight, and development, almost without exception, are appreciating assets. And I don't mean to, sounds like I'm not turning a human into a thing. It's not the point. The point is they're great assets to your company that will continue to grow into being greater and greater and greater assets, right? I mean, let's face it, if somebody saw in Jensen what he knew resided within him at the age of 21, 22, 25, their company might be worth $2 trillion right now rather than NVIDIA. It's completely possible. And yet, what you just brought up is such an interesting contrast, Morgan, because inventory, on the other hand, is a depreciating asset. So there's not many things in your life that you go, you know what I'm going to do? I have an opportunity to invest in $1 million in something that in 4 years is going to be worth 600 grand. I'm going to do that. I mean, you wouldn't do that. But yet you have the opportunity that same time to invest $1 million, say over the course of time, in the foundation of your company, in the DNA of your company, in the culture of your company, in the people. And that may turn into tens of millions of dollars in terms of, or hundreds of millions in terms of revenue, profit, or the value of the organization. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. I mean, again, a good example is Jensen. Jensen learned from his development that he needed to invest in his people to make a great company. I mean, while he's the face of NVIDIA and the voice of NVIDIA, I think he'd say himself that it was a team effort from day one. And while they've been on a hockey stick over the last year, I think Jensen would agree that it's a team effort, and he didn't do it all by himself. And that's something that is very true for dealerships as well, right? How do you keep your people motivated? How do you keep your people engaged? How do you keep your people with healthy habits on top of mind? Even for the 30-year veterans that run their own book on the sales floor, how do you make sure that they keep those healthy habits, that when they're talking to other salespeople, that those healthy habits are at the forefront of their thinking? And again, it goes back to that consistency. It doesn't have to be 2 hours, 3 hours in the classroom training session. It's 5 to 10 minutes, digestible, absorbable every single day, motivation, engagement, healthy habits. And that's how you build that culture. That's how you show that investment in your people.
I agree. Like Jensen, every once in a while, a Jensen Wong wanders into a dealership, and they're the ones that go from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 to 30 to 50. One of the people that I just really admire and love is Ali Rita, Jonathan Dawson and Frank over at Pinnacle Society, because, this is a group of people that are in the highest tier of selling. And you know how they got there? They relentlessly pursued self-development. And you know what they do today? They relentlessly pursue self-development. They're never done. They never graduate. I always say I'm a lifetime white belt, and they have that mentality. But, if you end up with an Ali Rita or you end up with a Frank or some other fantastic salesperson, it's typically not to our credit. Sadly, you honestly should drive over to the closest church if you're so inclined and walk in, kneel down, and say, thank you so much for dropping this person in my building, because you just didn't have anything to do with it, or very little. In the meantime, interestingly enough, there may be a number of other potential Alis and potential Franks out in the mix there. But unless, to your point, unless you have some way of pouring into them yourself, and most managers don't. Frankly, if nobody did that for them, they may not even know how. And I was sharing this also with somebody. Tell me what you think of this. I'm completely convinced, without a shadow of a doubt, that A players don't want to work for B managers. Sorry, but yet, if you had RockEd in there, and I, as a player, have access, you have 2,000 micro lessons I see. If I have access to a whole host of A players in here, and it's thanks to the fact that you're investing in me, it's no different than if you had that A player yourself when it comes to my development, right? Isn't that true, Morgan?
Absolutely.
So, just quick question. How old is RockEd?
RockEd is 3 years old.
Wow. Holy cow. 1,000 dealers, 2 million completions, 2,000 micro lessons in 3 years' time. Crazy.
In 3 years.
Who started RockEd?
So RockEd, our co-founders are Marco Schnabel, who was a founder of Automotive Mastermind, Matthias Stover, and Yarick Gaber.
Yeah, of the three, I only know Marco, and I'm a huge fan of Marco's. Just as an aside, when Marco was early on with Mastermind, he asked if we could meet up in New York. I was going to New York, and I remember we met at 29th and Park, and we sat down and had a great conversation. And I knew that not just he was special, but he had something special, and indeed he did. He's such another great example of people out there that somebody says, "Oh, wait a minute, didn't he start Mastermind?" He did. Didn't he sell it for a lot of money? He did. I think it was IHS. He did. So how much money does he need? Well, again, you don't understand really performance or how. You're not thinking of things in the right vein, because people like Marco Schnabel or other people, you see a Michael Jordan and Elon Musk. I was just reading about Steph Curry, whose businesses combined are heading towards $1 billion. He himself is heading towards $1 billion. The guy's got hundreds of millions of endorsements and NBA contracts. Why does he need more money? It's not the point. The point is, if you have better in you, why would you want to leave that sitting in the garage, right? Why would you not want to activate that? Why would you not? How many people say, "Man, I would really love to meet the best version of me"? Well, I think
what you said earlier is exactly the reason why. I think the best leaders and the best performers are dedicated to constantly learning. I mean, they 100%. Know that life is a learning experience, that we're always going to be learning, and that we're going to learn from something from everyone. And just a good example for me is when you and I were having a conversation a few weeks ago, and you were going through some of your experiences with previous negotiations, and in your experiences and some of your previous businesses, and what you did and how you navigated the situation was a great tidbit of information for me as we enter discussions with some similar organizations. And I think it's having that mindset that you go into everything, that you're going to be able to pick up little bits and pieces that really propels you to always want a little bit more and know that there's, life is a learning experience.
Morgan, obviously, as I just mentioned, you've got 1,000 dealers already at 3 years. When you guys present to dealers and they first jump on, no question, most dealers don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the department, they don't have the ability themselves, whether it's time or just the desire in reality, because they're so busy, to take on a formalized training program. They don't necessarily want to hire somebody for 150, 180 grand. I know a dealer that did that a couple of years ago, and it was a swing and a miss because they didn't understand their culture. The person was teaching what they wanted, not necessarily what was the DNA of the store. When you see dealers come on, a couple of questions. What are they most excited about? And two, once they're on for a bit of time, what are the things that put a smile on your face or Marco's face or Yager's face when you hear comments back from that very same dealer?
So the first thing that really gets us fired up when a dealer comes on board is how excited they are to show their people the app and the platform. Obviously, we're very proud of our user experience that you touched on earlier. It's a very
Brilliant. It's absolutely so smooth.
Netflix style app. We use a recommendation engine to recommend videos based on position and tenure. And dealers are very, very excited to show employees that they're making that investment in their training and development. It's something that really is people have never seen before. And we're very proud about that. I mean, there's numbers of CRMs and all those different tools, but there's really no training and development tool that's been in the industry like this. So we're very excited and very proud about that too. So really the look on employees' face when they realize that this is available to them is great for us. And then it becomes, we thrive again when we have an internal champion at a store and we're not promoting 2 hours every day or even 2 hours every week. We want 5 to 10 minutes a day, and we put it right in front of you when you open the app. There's 2 videos recommended every single day when you open the app. If those are the 2 that you do every day, we're satisfied and you've completed your learning. But it's very important for us to have an internal champion at the store that we can communicate with regularly. And then, what really gets us excited, say we're 30 days into a relationship with a dealer, is when we start determining some KPIs and some ROIs that they're seeing in their store. To give an example, we worked with a store that really wanted to beef up their tire sales and their fixed ops department. So we worked with their leadership to assign tire-specific content to their personnel. And over the next 30 days, we monitored the results, and they've had a 15% higher tire gross. They saw 60% more alignments, 30% more tire talks. And that is the data that we love. When we see that we're moving the needle for our customers, that's when we know that we're doing a good job. And again, it gets them even more fired up. And then we figure out the next area that we're really going to help them with, right? Where can we assign more content to their people to really help them exceed in their position?
I think that one of the most exciting things to me, and I didn't start the company. Certainly wasn't my idea. I didn't found it. I'm not part of it. I'm not an investor. I don't have any direct relationship. I certainly don't get impact or don't benefit financially, whether somebody signs up or not. But I love when I run into a product that it doesn't need any big explanation. It's kind of like Apple. Apple for the last 30 years, there's no owner's manual, right? It's seamless and it's intuitive and it does what it's supposed to do. It exceeds your expectations and it tends to find some way, even after 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, we've had these iPhones now for 15 years and they still delight people. And, there's a lot of this that I find when I opened up the RockEd app and I see my buddy Jimmy Douglas right there on becoming an EV expert. But what's cool is that it's almost like this allows me not just to develop myself, but allows me that if I'm in sales, I can at least tap into a knowledge base on parts and service that may serve me 5 or 8 years from now. It may open the door. It may actually light a fuse that says, man, maybe I like that better than sales. I mean, Ed Roberts had a technician that always wanted to be a salesperson. And a lot of stores would have said, Morgan, we can't afford to lose you as a technician. Instead, the Bozard being the brilliant organization they are, they looked at it differently. We can't afford to lose a great person. We want to support what they want to do. And they did. And the person did great, and they're happier and they're more satisfied. And now they're a champion of that dealership. I think it's going to be interesting to see as you guys continue to move forward. I think maybe one of the greatest things is going to almost be the stories that come out of here, right? The testimonials that come out of here. Maybe it's 2 or 3, maybe another year or 2 years from now, you actually have on here amongst the training and the development, but you actually have the RockEd Chronicles, the RockEd journeys where people started out. I mean, for goodness sakes, I could start out as a support person, a valet, a receptionist. I can have, I don't even have maybe a complete grasp of English because it's not my native language. but I can actually take this and connect my passion and my self-actualization, my work ethic, the fact that I love the car business or I love where I work, and I can create combustion by having this here. I want you to talk a little bit about the fact that when I click on here and I pull this up, a couple things. Number one, you talked about the focus there of our camera. This is like anyways. But anyways, I love this. So seamless, clean. I love that after I finish something, I have the ability to share. I love that once I mark it complete, I notice you also have badges, right? You have some form of reinforcement or, hey, nice job. This 2 days in a row, 5 days in a row, you got a winning streak going on. How much time did it take to really develop? Because it's one thing to throw a bunch of videos. I mean, come on, you could have done YouTube and thrown 1,000 videos. How much time did it take to really come up with this extraordinary UI, this platform as a whole? Because the brilliance of it is not just the fact that you are able to provide what you're doing for dealers and expose them to so many people they didn't know, but you're doing it in 1 minute or 2 minute segments. It's nuts. They're almost too short. It makes you feel like, it's almost like, okay, I drove down to the gym. I went to the locker. I changed my clothes. I can't just do one push-up. Right?
There's a lot of
crazy.
things to break down there, but I love your gym reference. So that's something that I use all the time, right? You don't go to the gym once a week for 8 hours a day. You're effective. You reach your goals by the 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 5 days a week sessions at the gyms, right? Mm-hmm. Going back to what you touched on before, we're very excited and we're very proud about how easy the product is to use. And combined with that is how easy the product is to launch. I spent the last 2 days at a dealer launching the product. And again, it was very successful. Everybody was super excited and they really appreciated how easy it was to get into the app and just start learning within 5 minutes of us giving the presentation, right? So it's very easy to just hop right into and start, developing yourself. The RockEd journeys, I would like to term it RockEd Pass, is a very real thing. It was met a number of lot attendants over the last couple of days that were super excited to hop into the app and just assimilate and absorb as much information about sales that they could to become that.
Isn't that crazy?
To move up to a salesperson position or even move into a service advisor position. This was going to give them the ability to learn more about it so they knew what they needed to do to get to that next level. And that was really, really exciting to see. And I think we will have collections, as we call it, of those RockEd paths, hopefully underneath the RockEd stories that you mentioned. Going to the development of the product, it's constantly changing. I mean, we develop the product every single day, and us internally at RockEd, we are our biggest critics. We're all in the app every single day. We all watch videos every single day. We're always checking for glitches, for grammar errors, for anything that could deter from the point of training and development. So the first year of RockEd was spent developing the product and creating the initial core content. But it's developed every single day, and we're rolling out new features every single quarter that we're excited to share with customers and present to people. Another thing that I wanted to touch on that you brought up is some of the content. You mentioned Jimmy and the EV content, and I just wanted to touch on how the idea came from that, to curate that content with our internal content team. And that's all from feedback from customers. We tell our customers that we want to know what pain points that they're having and what they want to see content on. At all of our launches, we show them the way to get in touch with us. We always give them our contact information, because their feedback and what they recommend and what they like and what they don't like drives what we curate and put on the platform as part of our core content. At the end of 2023, you know better than I do, people were complaining about EV inventory piling up on their lot. We heard it every single day.
Mm-hmm.
We were hearing it from our customers every single day. So we went out and we curated in EV journeys, electric vehicle journeys, to help dealers educate their salespeople on electric vehicles and become more effective on selling electric vehicles instead of converting back to the more comfortable internal combustion engine vehicle, right? A lot of dealers were seeing their salespeople flip very early because they were just more comfortable explaining traditional ICE vehicles, and they had no real training on in charging infrastructure, level 1, 2, 3, et cetera. How does it talk about range anxiety with customers? And that feedback from our customers drove us to put that content on the platform.
I think it's great. I mean, and one of the many powerful aspects about it is it honestly doesn't matter which direction the industry goes. It doesn't matter how it shifts. It doesn't matter if something comes along that's disruptive, transformative, or something that sustains. There's always 100 ways that a dealer or department manager or an associate can be actively engaging with your platform to be ready for what's next. One of my favorite expressions is what's next. And, for any of us in our careers or for our businesses, that's got to be something that we're thinking about all the time. You talk about product evolution and you roll something out, and the very minute you roll it out, all right, what's next? What can we do next? What problem can we solve? I'm curious I haven't had enough time to use it deeply enough, but is there closed captioning? Is there captioning on here? And I ask that because on social, captioning has just become dominant because it allows people to engage content, to learn things, or to be entertained by something without being intrusive.
Yeah, the answer to that is some of the videos do have subtitles. And we're working to make sure that going forward that captioning is available on all videos. Another request that we receive a large amount of the time is different languages. And so we're working on getting different languages subtitles on our platform as well.
Super smart. I mean, we've got such a multicultural business. Especially you go to places like Chicago, Dallas, Houston, LA, New York, Florida. I mean, it's like a cruise ship. There's cities where there's salespeople. I remember a dealership I was in not too long ago, and they actually had it on the door of the store. And if I recall right, between all the salespeople or managers in the store, I think they spoke over 30 languages.
Isn't that awesome? That is so awesome.
It's beyond awesome. It's so cool, right?
I mean, you've never met somebody that was bilingual and didn't think, well, that's impressive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is super. And just to touch on that, we at RockEd, a lot of us are on Duolingo because it's such a great comparison. It is to what we're trying to do, and we love what they do, and we love hopping in there every single day.
So funny you say that. My wife just actually sent me an invitation to join her on Duolingo. So I think it's great. I think that's great. So speaking of, what is next for, as you go forward in 2024 and knowing what we're encountering right now, which is a bit of a transformation, certainly a big time transition, if not a major transformation, especially depending on the franchise you're affiliated with. But when you sit there, the team at RockEd, and you say, okay, this is where the industry's going, what's next for RockEd?
What's next for RockEd is we are going to continue to enhance our product. A big push for us this year is going to be manager enablement, or what we like to call assisted coaching. How do we use the platform for managers to engage with their employees? A little feature that we have is the ability to nudge your inactive users. So as a manager, you can go in and see who's been inactive on the platform, starting with the day they haven't been on. And you can nudge those users to be able to send a push notification for them to hop back in and complete their learning. So cool. The manager enablement, the assisted coaching is very, very important to us. We think that's a way to drive utilization and drive engagement. And then we put approximately 200 to 300 new videos on the platform a quarter. I mean, keeping content fresh for us is key.
It's huge.
We have to have new content to drive the utilization, to drive people coming back, to drive that engagement, right? So that's kind of that's our goal for videos a quarter. But I'll tell you kind of where we really, really are excited about this year is we're getting a lot of interest in our studio offering, which is our custom content offering from dealer groups and large automotive organizations, where they can curate their own series of videos and compile them into what we term as journeys and direct those at specific audiences and specific users. You know, for an example, for a dealer group, that may be curating a series of guides solely on their sales process. They want every single salesperson in their organization to go through a specific sales process. We help them make that available from day one for all their salespeople.
Morgan, do they go to your silly question? Do they go to your studio? Do you help them figure out how to create that content on site within their dealership, and then they somehow send it to you, FTP it or whatever, the videos, and then you produce it? How does that work? In other words, are they taking the 2,000 videos that exist and then curating them and saying, this is what we want for the library for ABC Auto Group by position? Or are they saying, okay, we have an interest in maybe creating content and putting the short form content on RockEd, or both?
Great question. So the first part of that, if we do have an account management team or partner experience team that will work with stores to assign content that they would like their people to see. So we can assign any content on the platform to their intended users, whether it's directly assign it or assign it as a topic of the month. So when their users log into the app, it's right there, right at the top of the screen that they see right when they log in. The studio concept, we do have full production capabilities. So we have an internal content team that will work with our customers to script, shoot, and edit the content, put it in a mobile-friendly version, and compile it into a series of journeys specific to that customer. So that customer and their employees are the only ones that will see that content on the platform.
So it's proprietary.
Yes.
Great. And by the way, where are you located? Where's the studio located?
So we have studios all over. We usually rent studio space so we can shoot normally in Los Angeles or New York. But we have customers where we've done shoots on site at the dealership, in the service drive, in the business office.
Think about that.
We can do wherever.
Yeah. Well, listen, any final thoughts? I mean, I want to say this too, is RockEd going to be at any industry events where people can find you, or how do they find you? If they're interested in learning more, are you just sending them to, I think your website was rocked.us?
That's correct. That's a great place to find us, is at rocked.us. Of course, we were at NADA earlier this year. We were at Autovate last year. We plan to be at Autovate again this year, later in the year. Loved that conference. I think Cliff did an excellent job. It was a lot of fun, very engaging. But yes, the best way to find us is rocked.us. You can see what we're all about, get a glimpse at some of the videos that are on the platform and some of the statistics that we've gathered through user questions on the platform, and see what dealers are saying about us. And yeah, rocked.us is probably the best way to get in touch with us.
Great. And I must say this too, right before we wrap up, is because I have to call this out. You know, again, the videos are brilliantly done. They're short. They're super vibrant. They're impactful. They've got all the right people. But something that was a little bit, you talk about wowing and delighting people. One of the things that was really cool, we've all been in situations where we engage with something and then it says, hey, you want to take a survey? No. The way that you guys, after a video's done, and it's not a survey, it's just like, it asked me, you know, is it more important to you to get along with others or to be the top salesperson, for example? And you go, well, okay, I want to be the top salesperson, let's say. And then a second question came up and you click it, and third, and then it just disappeared as seamlessly as it came on. And then it allowed me to complete that lesson. And then the next thing was, hey, here's your first badge, right? Hey, you've got the start of a streak. I mean, it really is an incredibly well-designed interface. It's easy, it's fast, it's seamless. So I could see why people use it. I mean, one of the things that's maybe the more impressive than anything, all of those are impressive in their own right. 2,000 lessons, 1,000 dealers, 90% feeling more confident with RockEd, 96% positively impacted their sales. What's the most important thing for me as somebody has been around development and online learning systems, what the hardest thing about an online learning system? Getting people to use an online learning system. It's not building it.
What's the most expensive trading platform you've ever purchased?
The one you don't use?
The one you don't use.
So I think one of the most, if not the most impressive thing about this, if I was right now a dealer, was the incredibly high likelihood that your people are going to engage it. Number one, it's on your phone. Number two, it's fast. Number three, it's easy. Number four, I can hit 2 videos in under 5 minutes time, and I will be better prepared for my day. From your perspective as a dealer, an owner, a manager, or a leader, the fact that because of that, they're going to not just start something, they're going to finish something. And I think that may be amongst many impressive things about RockEd. To me, that might be the most impressive thing of all. Because if we can not just develop people, but literally teach them. You mentioned no improvement, Glenn mentioned in how many cars sell per month, despite having all kinds of technology come out and CRMs, which are supposed to help us, I kind of thought, do a better job of nurturing relationships with customers. But at the end of the day, it didn't. Why? Because it didn't change the behavior. Why? Because it didn't actually do anything to elevate me. And, now with this, if you could teach me how to finish something that I start and up-level me along the way, something tells me there's going to be a lot of happy endings out there where people's trajectory is going to get better, like these folks you were talking about earlier. Dealerships are going to up-level, and probably there's going to be times when they don't even realize it was RockEd that played a role, but you guys darn well know, I'm sure. And then for the industry at large, it's such a great industry, but it doesn't always have a great reputation, either from a customer perspective or from an employee perspective. And I have no doubt in my mind, honestly, after checking this out and using it and just understanding what the interface is and how it works, I guarantee you in 5 years' time, it's not going to look the same. It's going to be much, much better than we've seen in the last 40 or 50 years. And that's got to put a huge smile on your face for all of you at RockEd.
It absolutely does. Our goal is, we like to say we're making dealership dreams come true. And we want to be in as many rooftops and have as many users as possible and really become that one platform that people can go to, not just train and develop, but to learn from their OEM, to learn from their DMS, to learn from their CRM, to learn from compliance. We would love to be just the one platform that people are accessing every single day for that 5 to 10 minutes to really learn everything that is their dealership and what they want to grow into.
I'll leave you with this. During the pandemic, I was coaching for free about 5,000 small businesses and entrepreneurs around the world via online coaching calls that I would do for free once a week or once every other week. And one thing that I would say over and over and over again is, the minute somebody really starts to tap into what makes them uncommon, and the minute they start to tap into their ability to make themselves better, to up-level themselves, to develop themselves, there's nothing more exciting to me or meaningful than when somebody realizes that as it pertains to wanting to meet the person, the best version, or achieving their life's dreams, that they just made the transition from an if to a when. An if being somebody you don't know if they're going to ever make it or not. And of course, a when, it's just a matter of time, but there's no doubt. I will tell you, from my perspective, I think it's appropriate to say, without question, RockEd is a when, and the when is happening right now. So hopefully, more dealers do jump on board, because the fastest way or the most sustainable way to make your store better is to make your people better. So I'll leave it right there. Morgan, what a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to join me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, David. Happy to be here.
Thank you. For everyone who's joining, taking the time to listen again, as always, I hope you got tremendous value. I certainly did myself, and I certainly hope you did as well. I always endeavor to deliver great value for the investment of time, because I want to give you a terrific ROI. If you're so kind, if you know somebody who really wants to up-level their team, who wants to grow their team, who's struggling with building a great team or recruiting people, this is an X factor. So please take the time to share this episode out. Please download and subscribe. And as always, please take the time to leave a review. You can find this episode, information on how to connect with Morgan, and information on RockEd at www.davidspisak.com. And I look forward to seeing you next time on The David Spisak Show. Thanks so much.